can keep modifying within the pose. So coming onto the balls of your feet now, taking the hips nice and high. Coming up on the balls of your feet, taking the hips nice and high, and trying to take the hips further back. Excellent. Now try and bring both the heels to the ground. That's it. Perfect. Bring the knees down. You're getting into child's pose. Take the hips back onto the heels of your feet. Stretch the hands forward. And thank you very much. So that was downward facing dog. The Sanskrit name for that is Adho Mukha Svanasana. So Adho is downward or down. Mukha is face. Swan is dog. And asana is pose or seat. So Adho Mukha Svanasana. A little bit of a tongue twister there. But yeah, so that's that pose. So most poses, as you have noticed in the past few days, are inspired by nature or animals or even personalities from Hindu literature. So this pose is obviously by observing the movements of a dog. So there is a story about a dog as a constant companion in the Mahabharata after the Kurukshetra war. And I just want to briefly tell you about the story and how flexibility comes into play, because we have chosen flexibility with downward facing dog. So basically, in a nutshell, after the Mahabharata war at Kurukshetra, the Pandavas, which are 5 brothers, and their wife, set off on this journey up a mountain to go to heaven. And at the peak of this mountain was supposed to be a chariot that would take them to heaven. So on the journey, a dog joined them. And as they continued on this treacherous journey, one by one, they started falling by the wayside. And the first to fall was the wife. And for her, it was, she had, each one of them had vices. Her vice was that she was secretly attached to Arjun. So that attachment was her downfall. Then it was Sahadev, who was very prideful about his intellect. Then there was Nakul, who was very prideful about his looks. Arjun was conceited and overly self-confident. Bhim was very prideful on his physical strength, and he ate a lot. And the only one standing now was Yudhishthira, and this dog, his faithful companion. So as they continue, they reach the peak of the mountain, and their Lord Indra comes with his chariot ready to take them to heaven. But the thing is, dogs at that time were inauspicious. So Lord Indra refused to take this dog on his chariot. And Yudhishthira now refused to go alone on this chariot because this animal was his constant companion. He was there right through to the end. So how could he leave him back when he's on the brink of heaven? So eventually, after a lot of back and forth, Yudhishthira turns around and he says, okay, if he's not going to heaven, I'm not going to heaven. And he's about to leave. And that's when Lord Indra says, oh, and no, you can't board the chariot with your dog because you have now passed the final test, which was the test of dharma. So dharma is the way you live in Hinduism, basically having this righteous way of living, if I can say it like that, with your morals and your values and all of that. So the dog was allowed to go in. So flexibility now comes in flexibility of your mind. So the way I see it, when Yudhishthira had the opportunity now of leaving this animal behind, he didn't allow the thoughts of other people now to waver his decisions, or the thoughts of other people to to regard that animal as inauspicious. That animal was his companion, and he refused to just leave it behind, to cast it by the wayside. He felt it was his duty to actually take it along with him. And so that flexibility of mindset actually allowed him to do that, because if he was rigid in his thoughts, he wouldn't have passed that test to go on. The other thing is, we as human beings, how often, whether it be in our studies or in our daily lives, in our businesses, or whatever it is we perceive as heaven on earth, whatever it is that brings us immense joy, whatever accomplishments we have made, when we reach that brink, we tend to forget those companions that was with us along the journey. And so for me, I believe that if we are flexible in our mindsets, and if we are humble, and if we truly acknowledge those people and those things around us, we will not allow the prejudices or the judgments of other people to contaminate our thought processes. So that's my take on downward facing dog.
Good, because, as you were talking about, getting influenced by other people's decisions, the thing is that, if we take the example of Judicial, if he felt like being with the dog was going to be a sad or whatever thing, he would have actually got influenced in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
What I thought was nice was that his heaven was in living the truth of his being, rather than in a place or in a thing. And so often when we're doing a task, we think this task is important, and so it gives me a sense of pride and joy, and another task is not as good, and so then I move into a state where I'm unhappy. So actually, the flexibility enabling to do one thing or the other and not actually losing my composure, my state of being, is actually really what the power is, because I don't break myself under situations that are not in my favor, or which I think are not favorable, but I can actually weather everything and still be who I am, which is, I think, a very nice example. And dogs are like that. They're so faithful. No? But in going into this quality of flexibility, just one thing I thought, let's just read today's card, because we have dedicated it to being flexible. So flexibility is when I develop the art of moving from one task to another without reducing my peace, love, or wisdom. Being flexible makes my life pain-free, allows me to connect with various personalities, grows my capacity to take on new challenges. And I think this is so beautiful, because sometimes we feel that we need to be focused, and focus can be misinterpreted as stubbornness, rigidity, non-negotiable, and those things are not good qualities, actually. And so it's lovely to be able to see. But let's talk a little bit about, because I think even with the pose itself, to be able to stretch like that and hold the balance, which are the things that are being engaged the most? Which muscles?
The downward facing dog is actually an excellent pose. It's also a transition pose where, like if you're doing Surya Namaskar, you would go into downward dog and then to high plank and then drop into cobra. So it's a transition pose as well. And it's used a lot in vinyasas, just to get you from one pose to another. But in itself, it's an excellent pose to hold, because it's also an inversion and it stretches the entire body. You are strengthening your ankles, you are stretching the calves, the thighs, your abdominal area as well. Your back, your spine is being stretched. And what I find with downward dog, if you do not have issues like vertigo and high blood pressure, and you can actually do an inversion, as we age, most of us suffer with lower back pain or with back pain in general. And most times you would find as a person age, the cartilage between the vertebra kind of degenerates and you find that the vertebra kind of fuses. But when you're doing inversions and you're creating that stretch on your body, you're actually creating a space between these vertebrae, and also you're lubricating them at the same time. So it's very good for your spinal health. And we all know that if your spine is healthy, then you are generally a very healthy person. And
yeah, sorry, carry on.
So it also now strengthens your arms and your wrists as well. The entire body is engaged in just that one pose. It's, like I said, one of my favorites. So if I don't have time to do yoga, I would go, which is not very often, but it does happen. So I would just go into a downward facing dog and just enjoy that stretch. Even after a hectic day, if you just get into downward dog and just feel that stretch, it feels so good.
So I would like to focus on the idea of the backbone, because you know, in life, when somebody doesn't have a standing position, when they get too easily influenced and they little bit gullible, I would say. What happens is that we say, you know, you're spineless, you know, we kind of make that judgment on people. But I think it's, for me, when we can now connect it to the whole Raj Yoga thing, the whole Raj Yoga element is very powerful in a sense that I want to become a sovereign of myself. So I want to live my life making a substantial stand where I don't get influenced by other things, but as a master, I can actually support others. So if I have my own stability, I'm strong on my own principles, then my life can actually be useful. Shalona, before I just carry on chatting, I see there's a chat there. So some of the poses were inspired by Hindu literature, somebody making a comment. But okay, the thing that I want to say, okay, Shalona, you should read the chat. It might be something you'll be able to answer. But it's very necessary for us to realize that even in doing these kind of poses physically, they create a strength for our physical body. But in life, there's a lot of challenges that comes that we need to learn to be able to stand very firm in our principles. And so a daily dose of affirmation of who I am, where I come from, who I belong to, is very necessary to make sure that I know my connection. I know what connects me. I know what grounds me. I know what holds me together. And because I have such clarity of it, I don't have a rigidity. I was just thinking that, you know, when something is very squashed, like you said, the different vertebra, when you stretch it, that means other things can get stretched when the liquid can move in. So to think about that idea of lubrication is that when I'm stretched a little bit, I'm flexing my muscles. And for us, even in our life, if we don't get new opportunities and to go beyond our capacity, we can also remain a little stifled. And definitely then that will make us rigid, because then we become a little bit controlling. We only know so much. We've only had that much of an experience. And so then we want to hold on to that which we have. But someone who's had a variety of experiences, a variety of challenges, is a little bit more open-minded. They have a little bit more that feeling of trying new things, because, and it's not about taking risks, it's being experienced. Being experienced actually has its own authority in our lives. So I love the fact that if we kind of see the science or the knowledge behind the little poses, but also link it to the fact that, you know, this inner state of being, because like, for example, you know, you think about yourself, when you're really tired, the last thing you want to do is like do an exercise or do a pose. But because you know the benefit of it, even if you can't do the whole routine, you can just do a downward dog pose, and so give yourself 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 2 minutes even. But that can actually be the game changer. Now, it's wisdom, it's knowledge that allows us to make these choices. If I don't have knowledge, I can even find myself really then making bad choices, and that will then end up ending up into some kind of like situation where I'm just creating disservice for myself. So these are very beautiful things. I just love. I mean, I'm glad that we're exploring it, because we didn't chat about this before, and I like how it's getting more and more clearer as we're going ahead. And it's also wonderful that for myself, what I'm seeing is that suddenly I've also just gone into a good routine. Because when you start talking about it and you create the clarity and understanding, the motivation is so amazing. You don't have to be motivated. It's like it just puts that button on, and the lights come on, and you're ready to go. So I must say,
Definitely.
good for me.
Okay, so to the comments that came about religion and yoga, yoga is not a religion. Yoga in and of itself is a science. The key word is inspired. So it's inspired by these scriptures. It's inspired by nature. It's not a religion. It's a science. And ancient yogis believed that all life was one. There was no discrimination between an animal or a human. And when we practice yoga, it's not something I would say that's spiritually inclined. You're not taking someone away from their spiritual belief system. It's for the body. It's creating peace of mind. It's that mind-body connection. That is what yoga is about. And we got to, obviously it's your choice in your belief systems. You know, we're not here to change your belief. But me personally practicing yoga, I just practice yoga. That's me. For me, religion is love. It's nothing else. Love first for myself, for my body, because when I love myself, then only can I love everyone else. And then only can I inspire anyone else to be who they are. So the key word there is inspired. So it is taken, yes, it is taken like warrior pose was Virabhadra, but the character of Virabhadra, how does that affect us? So when you stand in that pose, how are you feel strong, you feel energized, you feel like you can conquer the world, your world. I don't mean it, like you can go out there and just be this dominating personality. No, I'm talking about yourself as a human being. When you are there in that pose, how do you feel? When you are doing downward dog, yes, it's inspired by Hindu literature, but it's really about yourself. Like I said, the key word is inspired. It's not literature. It's not Hinduism per se, where we are now changing your belief system. It's a mind-body connection where when you put, yoga is the only form of exercise that actually massages your internal organs, that actually gives you yoga. Hatha yoga is meditation in movement. So you get into a meditative state, you focus on your breath, and you create that peaceful mind. That's what yoga is about. And when you in yoga, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which actually helps your body to regenerate, recover, and heal.
Thank you. Okay, that gives us time to really just home in on our inner world. And I love the idea that this mastery we're gaining is not over anybody, but over our own self and our senses. So I invite you to become quiet and still, find a beautiful spot to rest on. Firstly, your body to be comfortable and relaxed. And also I invite you to let your mind become stable and allow your eyes to rest on a constant spot in front of you. And with your eyes open, I become very alert. I become aware. And in this state of awareness, I remind myself that what I see through my physical eyes, the external world, is really just a world of matter. In many ways, it is also a projection. But I choose to move away from that physical experience, and with my eye of understanding, I bring my attention to the awareness of my true form. I am the living being, the soul, residing in this body, in the center of the forehead. As a yogi, as a Raja yogi, my aim is to create mastery over the physical senses, in which I, this beautiful being of light, reside. And the center of the forehead becomes my throne, my immortal throne, because it is in this awareness of being inside of this body, in the center of the forehead, that I become aware that I never die. The body may perish, the body may weaken, but I, this beautiful being, pure energy, is eternal, immortal, imperishable. And for a few moments, I just rest my feelings on this beautiful wisdom of being eternal, imperishable, allowing myself to remove any limited perceptions that I've had, the fear of dying, the worry of being hurt and being harmed as this living being of energy. No one can touch me, cut me, burn me, or destroy me. And with this beautiful feeling of safety and security, this beautiful confidence in my own being, I find myself in this beautiful position where I can reach out in any direction. I find myself trying new things. I am open to new possibilities. I'm able to expand my capacity and grow. I, this being of light, am not restrained by anything physical. I can see myself completely free from any shame of doing any tasks, or the fear of taking responsibility. I can play the different roles and then act in different roles with ease because I know who I truly am. I am not the role I play. I am this eternal being of pure light energy. So today I remind myself that I will stay true to myself, bringing into my awareness the quality of peace as my eternal nature, as the quality of love as being my true form of expression, and the quality of wisdom that allows me to have the clarity and flexibility in all the various situations. Knowing and understanding who I truly am allows me to step into my full potential. It allows me to live my true purpose and gives me an opportunity to truly serve without any conditions. I celebrate this day with ease, knowing that I, this living being, am on this beautiful field of action. And as the different scenes and situations come, I play, I enjoy, I experience. But at the end of the day, I will always return to that being that I am. In fact, I always retain that identity of peace and love and wisdom while I play my variety of roles and responsibilities. I keep this beautiful vision of myself and experience freedom by being flexible. Om Shanti.